Welcome to Showboys, a podcast that delves into the world of film and TV. Hosts Nick and Mike take their water cooler talk from the office to the web as they discuss their favorite movies, shows, and all other content in between. In this week's episode, the boys take a trip up to Toronto and fight their way through the greatest love story to come out of 2010. From a singing pirate to a skateboarding action star, a vegan bass battle to a hipster sword fight of the ages, and a tall tale of self-respect and learning how to love, this movie has it all. So, what's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World? Welcome to another episode of Showboys. My name is Mike, and I'm joined as always by my good friend Nick. How you doing tonight, Nick?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Michael?
I am pleased as punch. I'm so excited about tonight's episode. I would say you have no idea, but you very much do have an idea of how excited I am.
I have enough of an idea to suggest we do this.
Yes. Before we get into the episode, we just want to get a few things out of the way. Still need those sweet YouTube subscribers. So if you can, it's free, so you should be able to. You have no excuses. Head over to our YouTube page, subscribe, click the notification bell. Really helps us out having those subscribers. And also, you will help us get a nice fancy custom URL, which is what we really want. But yeah, and plus it's a nice easy way for you to always be notified whenever we upload a new episode, because all of our episodes, along with Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and the other assorted platforms for podcasting, we also upload our episodes on YouTube as well. So check us out. Please subscribe. We are also, to help with all of our random social media platforms and podcast listening platforms. We have a Linktree page, which is, I'll post this on our Facebook and Instagram and kind of share it around. But it's a nice handy page that has links to all of our pages in one handy spot. So, it'll be nice, I think, and easy. Other than that, we got anything else we got to get out of the way, Nick?
No, sir. Let's dive into it.
All right. So, we were wondering what to talk about tonight, and by some miraculous divine appointment straight from the Lord, Nick was like, why don't we talk about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World? And I about had a heart attack, because anyone who knows me knows that Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is probably my favorite movie of all time. Actually, on our episode where we talked about our top 3 movies, it was on my list, talked about it briefly there. But yeah, I'm pretty much the leader of the Church of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and I intend to convert all you savage animals to the way of Scott Pilgrim tonight. You have no choice.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're in charge of that church. I'd like to see you push it a little more and actually gain some followers.
I'm trying. It's not easy. But yeah, what kind of made you want to talk about it tonight?
So it's been One, you talk about it whenever you possibly can. Two, it's been on my Netflix watch list for quite some time. So as soon as I saw it added to Netflix, I added it to my watch list. And it's just been one of those movies that's just been seemingly getting, very far down my watch list. I had to go pretty far to find it. So I was happy to check and move a item off of my watch list, which keeps slowly growing.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
It never gets shorter, that's for sure.
Yeah, it really bugs me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then also, I mean, you've explained it a couple times in short. Obviously, you didn't want to ruin anything, and I don't think you did. You do a really good job of not ruining that movie for everyone that is just completely ignorant of it. But disclaimer: we are about to ruin that movie.
Yeah. Good call there. Because I was about to be like, well, I'm glad that I did that for you, but I'm about to ruin it for everyone else. So here's your chance. As much as we'd love for you to listen to this entire episode, if you have not seen Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, I would recommend
Pause.
The
Go
movie
watch it on Netflix.
Right, it's on Netflix. You can get it anywhere. You can rent video. But I mean, the movie's 10 years old, so I feel like I shouldn't have to say spoiler alert, but we're gonna spoil the crap out of this movie, so please watch it if you haven't already and come back and listen to the rest of this episode. With that out of the way, yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day after you started watching The Boys, and honestly after Cody started watching it as well, and he was texting me about it. I try really hard to make you guys want to watch some of these things, but also it's really hard because I don't want to give away what makes it so great in my eyes, and in particular with Scott Pilgrim. Excuse me. Part of what made this movie so amazing to me in the first place is how completely caught off guard I was when I saw it. So I kind of didn't want to reveal too much of the story and everything to you, because I kind of was hoping that you might have a similar, experience watching it, except I did tell you about it and told you how much I love it. So just so everyone knows, when I saw this movie, my wife and I saw it at a discount theater in our area. We used to have a theater that would show movies for $1 to $1.50 a ticket, and movies would go there after they quit running in our regular theater. So we would go there quite often because it was up to maybe $3 for a date night, and that's amazing. But we were looking for something to watch one day, and I love Michael Cera, and saw that he was in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and I knew nothing about the movie at all except for Michael Cera was in it. So I was like, hey, let's go see this. So she agreed, and yeah, just sit down in theaters, and after the first 15 minutes of the movie, I was like, what is this? This is the most crazy, off the wall. I don't even really know what other adjectives I could use to describe it, but yeah, it was just such a pleasure to get to experience this movie in theaters and not knowing a single thing about it when I first originally watched it. But how'd you feel about it?
I mean, I think it does I enjoyed it, and it does a very good job at, I think, guiding you to ultimately what happens, second act kind of thing, where the movie kind of really picks up, with all the different things that they do at the beginning. So at the beginning, it is kind of weird because there's all these cool elements, but it's this seemingly weird story that starts off, and you're kind of piecing together what's going on. But it just kind of keeps building on itself in a very leapy kind of way. as
Yeah.
soon as you kind of understand what the movie's doing, it will just like leap forward in a natural way though. Like it makes sense
Yeah.
with what it sets up.
Yeah. So before we go any further, I'll just give you a like one sentence synopsis I found of the movie. It stars Michael Cera as Scott Pilgrim, a slacker musician who must win a competition to get a record deal and battle the 7 evil exes of his newest girlfriend, Ramona Flowers, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. So, yeah, so basically, the premise of this movie, we have Scott, who is in a band, like a crappy, your typical crappy local punk band. And they're trying to like do what every crappy local band wants to do, and that is get a record deal. So, yeah, so it opens up with Scott I think it's their vocalist's house. They're all sitting around the table talking about Scott's new girlfriend, who actually at the time is not Ramona Flowers. It's Knives Chow, a high schooler, and it kind of like starts and plays out for the first 10-15 minutes like your typical Michael Cera like college
that's
type comedy kind of, wouldn't you?
That's the first kind of like subversion it does, where it's like he's probably lying about having a girlfriend. That's what they're setting up there, and all the way to the point where he says her name. You're like, oh yeah, he is for sure just lying about having a girlfriend, and then no, she's a real person.
Yeah, and the thing I love about the character of Scott Pilgrim is it's like such a stark contrast of what you typically see Michael Cera play, which is the like dopey, bumbling, like self-conscious, like dork,
That's
But
not what he's playing in this movie.
In this movie, he's like confident and like charming and like, yeah, it's just like I mean, he's still like an idiot, but like not like the introverted, like unsure of himself type.
Yeah, it's a weird blend because I would still say he is unsure of himself, but he does have like a weird confidence about who he is still.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's pretty great. But about I think I want to say it's about 10 to 15 minutes in the movie. It's just kind of playing out as your typical comedy type movie, and then like you get to the scene at the Rocket, the first stage of the Battle of the Bands, where Scott Pilgrim.
It's about the 25-minute mark.
Is it 25 minutes? Okay.
Yes.
It's Sex Bomb, playing up against Clash and the Boys, and in the middle of the Sex Bomb song, some dude just comes like flying through the roof of the venue and like challenges Scott to a fight, and yeah, you just basically have like a Street Fighter Tekken style arcade fight in the middle of this movie, randomly out of nowhere, that like completely takes you off guard. And then to take it a step further, like in the middle of this random Street Fighter fight, it breaks out into like a musical. It's just like the whole time I'm just sitting there like, what am I watching? This is so crazy.
Yeah, because I was thinking back on your story about how you encountered this movie, and that for sure is that experience lends itself a lot to really define a movie, I think, because I mean I have movies or even shows like that where you're just kind of a bliss for the first part of it, and then all of a sudden like something happens that just blows your mind. as to what you're watching. And I have a similar experience like Attack on Titan. You know, by episode 2 or 3, it's just kind of like a regular anime thing happening, and then all of a sudden they just start stacking plots onto you, and you're just like, what am I watching right now?
Yeah, so even though it takes up to 25-minute mark, like you just said, for the top to just blow off this movie and it to completely subvert any expectations that you might have had, it is an Edgar Wright movie. So even in that first initial 25 minutes where it kind of is playing out like your typical comedy, it does a lot of very amazing Edgar Wright things, where, I mean, the entire movie is presented as if you're reading like a manga or a graphic novel, like on a TV screen, if that makes sense. Like, I always struggle trying to describe this part of the movie, but the way the scene transitions work, the way that they use the visuals of like sound effect, like words of the sound effects, like floating in the background, and like the extreme cuts from one scene to the next, and like the way that sometimes like the person transitions like from the same exact spot that they're standing in into the same exact spot, just in a different setting, or like it's basically like you're watching panels of a comic or a graphic novel like be acted out live in front of you, including the awkward transitions that you find in graphic novels. And there's a lot of like video game-ness, like the 8-bit 16-bit style of sound effects and even graphics that they put up on the screen. It's just, there's so many like auditory and visual things that are just plainly like gorgeous, I guess, to like see. And even though this movie was made like 10 years ago, like the visuals still hold up and look like breathtaking, honestly. But like, how did you feel about all of those like little details?
No, it does that so well, because it is really well done to where it's within its limits for sure, because it's going for that kind of like 8-bit, 64-bit kind of style. It fits into what they're doing, and it's not the kind of special effects where they're meant to be kind of flashy and look realistic. They actually kind of look like they would in a game. And I would kind of describe it as, the 60s Batman, where the pows and the bangs.
Yes,
and then,
that's exactly it.
And then, so they do that, right, for just like different pieces. And even when they're like moving about, like even where you wouldn't expect it, there's like weird, like maybe Z's if someone's sleeping, or like weird A's are trailing. They're real subtle though too, and it blends together all very well.
It's so good because like I've watched a lot of movies that have been based from comics and stuff, but like they just, well, okay, so I'll just read something I found here. Edgar Wright, he cited Mario Bava's 1968 film Danger Diabolik, which I think is an Italian film, which was an adaptation of a comic series. And he just said the Italian influence, a sense of completely unbridled imagination. They don't make any attempt to make it look realistic. And that I couldn't put it any other like way, any more accurate way, where they don't try to make this movie seem grounded at all. Like they go out of their way to make it seem as comic-y as possible.
And not even comic-y, it's also very much video gamey, because I'm kind of just like skimming through the first fight at the concert hall against the pirate guy, ex-boyfriend. And so like even when he first like punches him and whatever, the words at the bottom of the screen flash reversal, right, as almost like a move or something, and then obviously they land back and it says versus kind of thing. So it has
Yeah.
a real big video game setup too, which, like you said, that kind of like Tekken style fighting. It, it's you're watching that, and even the way they move, it's kind of 2D if you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. It goes on. He goes on to say that both Edgar Wright and Brian Lee O'Malley, who wrote the graphic novel series that the movie is based off of, that it's merely the internal perspective of how Scott understands himself and the world. So that kind of like makes sense as like, how played up and video gamey it kind of seems, because that's kind of like how Scott sees himself. Um, but yeah, back to the video game aspect. I would say it's like pretty much like split right down the middle, half and half, like between
Mm-hmm.
comic and video game influences and like Easter eggy like references and stuff. Um, I
That
love, sorry, but that first fight scene when Matthew Patel is the first evil ex-boyfriend that comes bursting through the wall. When him and Scott are standing in their fighting stances like across from each other, and it literally, the camera is literally like the start of a Street Fighter fight or whatever. Like it
right.
says versus, like you said, right in the middle, and the like the video gamey style graphic. And I don't know if you noticed, but all the fights that Wallace was there for, like before they started fighting, he would yell "fight," kind of like at the
Yeah.
start of a game. So it's just like everything about it, even down to when he defeats them and they like burst into coins and gives them like a point value and stuff. It's I don't know, so interesting.
Well, Wallace is kind of like that narrator character or like sidekick that calls things out in like a comic book.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna add kind of about so it's like with the whole transitions thing. So obviously like the transitions from scene to scene or even within scenes is like really well done in this movie. But the way I would describe it is the movies and things where they kind of like do the whole like page pan to literally a different tile in the comic book, right? And
Hmm.
then the motion animation starts. So like that very literal transition. It's basically that without the extra literalness of moving from page to page. So you strip away the comic book aspect of it and you just place that in a real world setting, and that's how they fit it in there. So in that sense it's a little bit more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, this is a movie that Edgar Wright adapted from the Brian Lee O'Malley graphic novel series. So um, Edgar Wright and let me find his name. I forget who the other co-writer was. Michael Bacall. That's it. I always forget his name. Unfortunate. But Wright and Bacall co-wrote this with a lot of help and input from Brian Lee O'Malley. Basically, before the first issue of the graphic novel was released, the publisher of the novel kind of sought out a film adaptation of the series. And I believe it was during Shaun of the Dead that Edgar Wright was kind of pitched this, and like he fell in love with it and ran with it. But yeah, it's just another one of those amazing Edgar Wright films, along with the likes of Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, um, Baby Driver, which came out a couple of years ago. But it scored a 7.5 on IMDb and 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. It actually was like very well received by the critics and was nominated for several awards, but it kind of flopped at the box office, which is super sad because like this movie is so criminally underrated. And that's kind of why I decided to found the Church of Scott Pilgrim and to really spread the good news to all of you people. You guys need this in your lives. It will change you.
Well, it underperformed at the box office, says the guy who went and saw it at the Dollar Theater.
I know. But it kind of, I guess, falls into that category of like a cult classic, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly how I describe this. That's what like Hot Fuzz and that kind of stuff is too. It's just the style movie.
Yeah.
And I think I would have maybe watched it a little sooner if I knew that, put the two and two together there, that it was, the Hot Fuzz creator and all that series of movies. So that's cool that it fits into that lineage.
Yeah. But I mean, even outside of it being an Edgar Wright movie, like just listen to this cast: Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Chris Evans, so like Captain America himself. Jason Schwartzman is an amazing actor. Mae Whitman, amazing. Kieran Culkin, like Wallace, probably one of my favorite characters in this entire movie. We got Allison Pill, who is the drummer in the Sex Bombs. She's in a new FXX show called Devs, which is really amazing. You got Anna Kendrick, you got Brie Larson, you got Aubrey Plaza, and you got Brandon Routh. Like, that's a ton of amazing actors and actresses. Like, I mean,
Right.
you have Captain America, you have
Anna Kendrick.
you got
They're small roles, but they're there.
you got Superman. Brandon Routh played Superman, and then you have freaking Brie Larson. And for some reason, her superhero is escaping me, probably because I hated that movie.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Yeah, that one.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Yeah, two captains and Superman.
One thing I did not realize is that Miss Winstead was in 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah. Yeah, she's she was in like Final Destination movies.
Right.
She was in a season of Fargo. She was in 10 Cloverfield Lane, like you said. She's been in quite a few things. Excuse me. Got the tickle in the old throat ski. Let me take a drink of water here. But yeah, along with the comic book and video game-ness, another thing that I really loved about this movie was the musical aspect. Not like as in it's a musical like movie, but the music that is in the movie is great, and all the actors and actresses actually learned the instruments that they played in the movie and actually learned how to play the songs. And even the song that Clash at the Demon Head does, Black Sheep, that's Brie Larson actually singing. All the Sex Bomb songs, that's actually Steven Still, the actor who plays Steven Stills, he's actually singing that. The Clash and the Boys, that song, the guy who plays Clash, he's actually singing, which I thought was kind of a cool aspect that just adds another layer of like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it really puts all the characters in their roles pretty well, and kind of on the musical front. Like, I mean, there was some cool. I like their band really. They had they had that. I don't even know what that sound is, but it fit the role of their band in each of the battles, and how they kind of versed different musical types. Like the second group was kind of like a Daft Punk kind of thing. Not exactly,
The
but
Kadianagi twins, is that who you're talking about?
yeah, that I enjoyed that duel, that battle of the bands a lot
Yeah.
because of the way they transformed the environment. And that's the other cool thing is that they transformed the environments for those battles into
Yeah.
these much bigger kind of spectacles.
Well, I
And they
love
don't
like when that scene starts and they like hit their first chord on the keyboards and their giant wall of amps, like all the sound waves and stuff like hit
right.
the sex bombs and they like flip out, but it also like literally blows the roof off of the place, which
There's a hole in
is
the roof.
hilarious.
Snow
Like
is coming down.
they literally blew the roof off the venue.
Yeah.
That is a great scene though. Like you got the dragon, like serpent dragons coming out of their sound waves. And then, Scott, I don't recall the exact pedal that he's using, but I want to say it's like similar to a Bad Monkey overdrive pedal. And I actually have a pedal like that, but I love how like he hits that and then like the big Yeti like comes out and then he's like fighting the serpent dragons. And oh man. Yeah, there are so many cool scenes like that. Like even the opening credits where they're just like playing one of the Sex Bomb songs and you have Steven, Scott and Kim playing their actual instruments, and it's like the camera keeps zooming, like moving backwards, and it's just like they're in a really long version of their living room and you have young Neil and Knives sitting on the couch like watching. Just like even that the sequence of the opening credits is amazing, and like everything else that follows is as equally impressive.
Yeah, right. And I mean, that the credits was really cool how they just kind of open that up like you said. And it kind of sets a tone there. And then they kind of just drop into very very kind of boring Toronto, Canada. Not that Toronto, Canada's boring, but their location where they set that movie up is, it's just like a bleak. And where and what does Wallace live in? Like a bunker on the side of the road? Like
right, like just a big closet.
It's like a giant closet. It looks like a bunker, but then on the ones that I couldn't figure out his room because there's obviously the door that goes to the street, but then there's like a more normal looking door next to the window that Scott like jumps through to avoid
which is
Knives.
like the bathroom, right?
I guess.
But then like next to the recliner that's next to the mattress, there's like another door
where he went in and chained. No, that's the closet.
But like that could be the closet, okay. And then you got like the little
but then there's the bathroom. There's the bathroom next to the kitchenette. But but there's a window that he jumps through, which looks like it goes outside. So I don't know. Wallace's little pad there really confuses me.
And he's got like his like 1993 computer like there.
That was a good bit there when it kind of made. I mean, is there a year this is supposed to be in?
I don't think they actually say. It's like, hey, it's Wallace, Amazon.ca. What's the website for that?
Yeah, he's just kind of like he's kind of like a dunce when it comes to like the internet or even using a computer. And he's like reading that email from the first ex-boyfriend, and he's like, or like he's hitting like boring. He's like delete. But like the things he was reading, like the guy was clearly like threatening him and like gonna fight him, but he was like completely ignoring that. It was like, this is stupid.
Yeah, and then like even during their fight, he's like, "Didn't you get my email?"
Yeah,
like, I skimmed it. You will pay for your insolence. Oh man, but there's so many like great comedic parts and like one-liners and everything in this movie. But before I forget, going back to the music stuff, like it was all the music and even some of the bands in the movie were heavily influenced by bands like Beck, Metric, Broken Social Scene, Kid Koala, things like even the Clash at Demon Head is like a caricature of the band Metric, and the song Black Sheep is actually a Metric song that's kind of a caricature of themselves. So it's like kind of the perfect fit to be used for this movie by a band who's like a caricature of the band who actually wrote the song. But yeah, just the music, they pay so much attention to the music in this movie. It just like, again, like all the other episodes, like it's just executing on those small details and caring enough about every aspect of your show or film is really what makes it like, takes it to a new level. And that's one thing that I completely adore about Edgar Wright. Is he cares so much about every small aspect of his films.
Yeah, and I feel like and I think this is where the box office kind of flops come, and or at least where they're prone to these kind of things, because you get a lot of people who watch things like this, or even like Hot Fuzz, and they're kind of like, what's going on? What am I watching? And
Right.
It's hard, you never really have an answer at that moment, because one, you're watching the movie, too, but in hindsight you're always like, well, I'm watching all the things that are happening here, and I'm not just focusing on like the dialogue or the character arcs. It's all this other just cool stuff that is happening, that obviously a lot of times with movies like this you have to watch them multiple times to get all of it.
Yeah. And like I'm talking like the little things, like even in the opening like credit sequence, when the actors' names appear on the screen, if they if they're one of the evil X's, like the number of like which they appear is like tied to their name card in the opening sequence.
That's
so, like
cool.
Chris Evans, he has like a skateboard and like 2 lines, and then like Mae Whitman, like they all have their kind of numbers there, and they're like images of kind of that represent their characters. So it's like,
right, yeah, a little
It's
foreshadowing.
kind of neat, and like again, those little details.
Well, even like when she gives, like, they blatantly tell you later in the movie, but when she gives him her number, there's the 7 X's at the bottom of the card.
Yeah. Well, and like, Scott Pilgrim, he like, drinks Coke Zero because he's like, not an X yet, so he's 0, So like even things
that
like
makes
that.
Sense.
But yeah, man, there's so many amazing parts and like aspects to this movie. What are some of the things that kind of like stuck out to you, whether it's like a scene or like some technique or like thing that they use that you noticed? Or
I think, I mean, generally to some degree, the interactions between him and Ramona were just always intriguing to me, because she has just as much of a weirdness about her as his character does. And, at first it kind of comes off as like she isn't that weird, but, the more she engages with him and just kind of likes him, I mean,
yeah.
She has her own kind of weird, almost like okay, so she kind of, the same way you said, like the way he kind of sees himself, is how like a lot of these scenes kind of play out. I mean, she does the same thing. Like, I thought it was cool how when she would give the quick little backstory on the boyfriend, on the ex,
Yeah.
it was that cartoon, that very basic kind of cartoon sketch.
Pretty sure that those are drawings either by Brian, the creator of the graphic novel, or I haven't read all of them, but like they might even just be taken directly out of the books. I don't know, because the
Yeah.
art style is like, exactly the same as the cover art of the one, graphic novel that I actually own. So yeah, those parts were really cool. I loved how they did that.
Yeah. Anything that obviously any scene Wallace was in, he just had a great character, like you said, and I think one of the funnier parts in just kind of commentaries was the vegan ex-boyfriend, because he's so far like all the fights have been kind of like Tekken style, like just face kicking, and then all of a sudden dude it just has like a force field around him and
he's
uses
like
light to like repel him in his attacks, and it's just like hilarious the way they
dude. It's just like the whole sequence with them going backstage after the Clash at the Demon Head performance, and like the way that Envy Adams and Todd, Brie Larson and Brandon Ross characters sitting on the one couch, and Scott and Ramona sitting on the other, and like Knives pieces it together that like Scott dated Envy, and like so therefore they probably like made out and stuff, and she's obsessed with Clash of the Demon Head, so she's like, oh my gosh, I've kissed the lips that kissed you, like
Yeah.
and like Todd or like Envy like gives Todd the nod, and he just gets up and decks Knives in the face and punches her so hard that her blue highlights come out of her hair.
Yeah.
And then low-key, another one of the best characters in this movie, young Neil. He's just like, he punched the highlights out of her hair. He punched the highlights out of her hair.
Yeah, young Neil is awesome.
Yeah, dude. And like, yeah, just the whole vegan commentary was so funny. And the fact that Todd is just like really stupid anyways, on top of being a vegan, is hilarious.
Yeah, they have the bass battle was cool, and they're also they both play bass, so like that was like the first thing where, kind of like the first battle where she goes, they even have a female drummer.
Yeah,
and then and then
that reminds me of the. Go ahead, finish. I don't want to.
No, and then
but...
in that battle, then he fights like the alternative bass, the same kind of position there.
I love it in the first battle with Clash and the boys, and Wallace is like, they're like, hey, we're Clash and the boys, and he's like, is that girl a boy too?
Yeah.
Oh God, Wallace is so great in this movie. But yeah, just I also love the part where Todd's like trying to trash talk Scott, and he's like, yeah, and the cleaning lady will clean you up on Monday, and he's like, they're all confused, and he's like, because I'm gonna pulverize you, and you'll turn into dust, and the cleaning lady, well, she dust things, and so yeah, she'll clean you up on Monday. And then they're like, but why on Monday? And like, just the fact they had to like completely explain his whole thing is so funny.
Yeah, it's just capitalizing that he's just a big old idiot.
Yeah, and then the vegan police like burst through the wall.
Yeah, the vegan police were great, and Michael Cera's is kind of laying on the ground drinking his vegan friendly coffee. Yeah. But then, but like the worst
gelato.
The worst part about all that was that Todd, his hair just like fell like flat. It was no longer like perfectly like primmed up there. Yeah.
I think all the fight scenes were super cool and like very well choreographed. So like, even it kind of, you could also maybe even classify this as like a martial art movie almost, with the way the fight scenes play out.
Yeah, and what I did not get was the ex-girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
What was it that killed her or got rid of her?
So she's about to stomp Scott's face in, and Ramona. Like, I loved how they like did it all in slow motion. So like, it was really hard to kind of understand what Ramona said there. But basically, she's like, her weak spot's the back of her knee whenever we would make out, and Scott's like, all right, shut up, that's gross. And so he just like touches the back of her
Okay.
knee, and then
That's what she said.
yeah,
I thought it
she's
was
like,
something like that.
when we would make out and touch the back of her knee. Yeah. That I loved the part there too where he like totally doesn't get what's going on at the start, and then like um the like screen turns to black, and like his head turns into like a parking meter, and it's like the meter sticks on the like doesn't get it and then goes to the gets it side. Like the little things like
Yeah.
that are like when he was at the house party and he was asking everybody about if they knew who
Yeah.
this girl was, and he's talking to the one guy, the hipster looking guy that had
Up on the
kinda longer
stairs.
hair, parted in the middle with the glasses, and he's like, hey, have you seen a girl who looks like this? And he just like whips up a notepad with like a circle with squiggly hair on it.
Yeah. Well, that dude's caption was knows everyone, right?
Yeah. And like every scene that he's in, he's always like saying some stupid hipster thing. Like when they go to the Chaos Theater at the end, he's like, yeah, you should see them live. They're much better live. Or like, like the first album was much better than the second album, and like whatever typical hipster things say. Which I kind of like how they kind of made fun of hipsters a lot too, which is hilarious. But yeah, man, it's just a lot of great nuggets in this movie that like to truly explain and like reminisce about all of them, we'd probably be here all night. But yeah, anything else that kind of stuck out in particular to you?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, those are the big things. Trying to think if there was. I mean, I really disliked the last, whatever his name was, the last like guy.
Oh, Gideon.
Yeah, it took me a little bit to piece all that together.
Yeah.
But he was super annoying. He reminds me of somebody. Like it's almost like an Austin Powers character or something. Maybe that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
But that fight scene at the end was kind of cool, and I like how he died, but then came back. And I guess generally, Knives probably had like the best character arc because she evolved quite a bit throughout the movie.
Yeah, her character was really, really good. I love when he gets the sword power up. He's like, Scott earned the power of self-respect.
Yeah, first love, and then came back, and then got self-respect.
Yeah, and like all
pulls it out of his
stats in the
chest.
bottom like pop up. They like all go up. Also, another thing that I loved throughout the movie is how it was mainly Kim, the drummer, who would do this, but in the Caddy and Nagi twins battle, Scott does it.
Mm-hmm.
But like right before they'd play, like Kim would be like, "We are Sex Bomb" and blah 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 blah, and then she'd count the song down. They'd go into it, and like during the Caddy and Nagi twin ones, like Scott's like, "We are Sex Bomb, and we're here to make you think about death and feel sad and stuff," and like start playing. But in that last scene, after because after the Caddy and Nagi twin battle, Gideon signs them to a deal, and Scott refuses because sorry, throat's getting dry.
COVID.
Yeah, the Rona. But yeah, Scott refuses because he's like, I can't play for this guy, and like of course the band, because that's their dream, they just like sign. Neil takes his place and stuff. But when he goes into the Chaos Theater, and Kim's like, "We are Sex Bomb, and we're here to sell out and stuff."
Sell out, and that was a good adjustment there.
Yeah.
And the first battle, the the songs that they played, the opposing band, where it was just like the one was just like 20
2
seconds
chords,
long.
yeah, like
Yeah,
so sad.
yeah. I enjoyed that. And
Yeah.
then he just like stops and like turns around, gets a drink of water.
Yeah,
'Cause-
yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's then another thing that I loved that kind of played into the making fun of the hipster thing is like when he goes to get in the Chaos Theater and the hipsters are like guarding the door and he's like the password and he's like I forget what he even says the first time like whatever and they let him in and then
Yeah,
like,
it was whatever.
and then he like sighs and they're like oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's just-
Whatever.
yeah.
You're in.
But yeah, so basically, you know, the plot of the movie, Scott falls for Ramona, and in order to, well, he falls for Ramona while he's dating Knives, and then has this internal conflict of not even really that he wants to like be with Knives, he just doesn't want to like break up with Knives because that's, you know, a complicated thing to do, so he avoids it at all costs. And starts dating Ramona, and in order to, you know, be with Ramona, he has to defeat her evil exes, her 7 evil exes, and all the while this is going on, his band, the Sex Bombs, are competing in the Toronto Battle of the Bands for a chance to sign a record deal with Gideon Graves, who ends up being Ramona's 7th final and most powerful evil ex. And yeah, funny little tidbit is the movie was completed before the last graphic novel came out, so the movie kind of ends a little differently than the graphic novels do. But it originally was going to end with Scott staying with Knives, and like during playtests and stuff, kind of didn't really resonate well with the audience, as it would kind of like cheapen Knives' like whole character growth through the movie if she just like went back to Scott, you know?
Right. I mean, I was definitely more happy the way that played out in the actual movie.
Yeah, and instead, the ending that they changed it to was Scott, you know, being with Ramona. So
They kind of like go off to, you know, they leave Toronto. The way I interpret that, you know, they went on their adventure.
right. I loved how like the last fight scene kind of plays out like how the arcade game that Scott and Knives played in the beginning of the movie frequently. Even down to after they defeat Gideon, Scott has to face off against himself as Nega Scott. Mm-hmm. Kind of like in the game.
But he just befriends him.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, he's actually a pretty cool guy. It turns out we have a lot in common.
Well, a cool thing about that, in that fight, when I really started liking that fight is when Gideon pulls out his sword and it's pixelated, and it puts this pixelated blur over the whole scene everywhere he swings it, and like his glasses like are reflecting the pixelation of his sword. And he was the only one that really kind of had that graphic to it. Obviously, that scene was the climax.
Right.
And they really kind of took on the whole game element because it reminded me of like a Tron battle arena with the way everything was tiled, that Chaos Theater, the way it was set up. So
yeah, the level of like, man, how do I say this? The visuals in this movie are outstanding, and like each battle of the bands and each X fight is stylized so different that it really it keeps, even though there's 3 Battle of the Bands and there's, you know,
2
7 or 6
Chris Evans, bar party fight in the last one, three
Yeah.
battles, three.
At least 4 to 5 like fight scenes, because they don't technically fight the Katinagi twins, but like yeah, each one is so different that like even though the main plot device is repeating several times throughout the movie, each one feels so different that like it doesn't get old, you know?
Yeah, they're not really the same, because the first one, is just kind of like that Tekken fight within the kind of Peabody's House of Blues size venue. But then obviously, like the Inagi twins, the roof is blown off and it's snowing in there and it's a huge venue. So like, yeah, they're all very different. And they all play out a little different too each time. Like it's not just a KO. There's maybe 2 KOs, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, the vegan police come for the other one. And...
yeah, it's so great. I'll tell you about 2 of my favorite scenes. They both actually take place in Wallace's little shack or whatever. But
bunker.
Yeah, the part where Scott walks in and it's like the Seinfeld soundtrack and stuff, and it's like a sitcom, like that part,
that was really good.
Has like, I rewatched the movie last night. I've seen the movie like 100 times, but it had been a while, admittedly, so to refresh, I watched it last night and was so excited. But I watched it by myself on the couch in the living room. And, like, I probably sounded like a lunatic because I'm just, like, laughing hysterically alone in my living room in the dark at, like, 9:30 at night to this movie I've seen, like, 100 times already. But that scene, like, just the bass and, like, then you got, like, all of your typical sitcom line deliveries, and then you have the laugh track in the background. It was just, like, so tongue-in-cheek, and it was hysterical. And, the other scene was, well, and just that scene in and of itself is so completely like off the wall and different from every other scene in the movie that it's another one of those things where you're just like, what am I watching right now? Did you kind of get that same vibe?
I enjoyed this scene. I don't know if it was that exact vibe. I kind of just got what they were doing. I didn't know how long it would last, but it was cool that they kind of just inserted that bit of randomness into it.
Yeah. Like, I love he goes into that one room that we're not really, like, sure what it is, probably a closet or whatever, but, like, shuts the door and immediately, like, reopens it, and he's, like, in a completely different outfit or whatever.
Yeah.
But then the other scene is the one where it's, like, Scott and Ramona's date in the apartment. And just, like, all of the little things that happen. So, like, first he's like, I wrote this song for you. And, like, he sings it, and it's literally just him singing her name. And she's like, oh, I can't wait to hear it when it's finished. And he's like, what?
Right.
And then, like, they're eating garlic bread. And what,
it's
bread makes you fat?
Yeah. It's my favorite meal.
I could eat it for every meal. Actually, I could eat it all the time without even stopping. Well, then you'd be fat.
That was very in character. Like, that fit his character so well. Like, of course, all he would eat is... Because he's in there cooking. It's like, what is he cooking in the kitchen? And then it's just, like, this really nice garlic bread and some in the tin foil. It looked good, but, like...
I think
here it is.
Cracking, like, actual garlic cloves. So, like, it's probably some gourmet stuff.
Yeah. If it's all you eat, it's got to be.
But then, like, the next part of that scene, they're, like, making out or whatever, and she's like running her hands through his hair, and she's like, oh, your hair's kind of shaggy, and he like gets all insecure about it.
Yeah, that was I feel like that was a weird sequence. I didn't really I got it, but it was just weird to me. Like, he should not have had that big of an issue with that, but he does.
Just the way that like the scene plays out, where like Ramona and Scott, like, they keep, there are breaks in their action, and then you have like the narrator over top who's like, Scott is acutely aware that his last haircut took place 431 days ago, and like
Right.
how that keeps interrupting the acting that's going on, and it's like it gets me every time. I can't stop laughing. Um, but like I do love like how insecure Scott is like throughout the entire movie whenever it comes to anything with Ramona. Like he's so like, yeah, I guess the only word I can think of is insecure, and he like gets so easily offended by like anything that she says that might insinuate something is wrong, you know.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing because earlier you're saying how he is confident, but he's also, I mean, he is also like very insecure.
Yeah. Like anytime anyone says something about his hair, like there's a small cut, and the next time it shows him is him wearing a hat. Like,
Yeah, or the hat just like instantly appeared, and she was
yeah,
like, "Are we going on this walk just so you can wear a hat?"
yeah,
I like walks.
yeah. I was watching before you got on the blooper reel, and it was really funny. We can put a link to that in the YouTube description, along with a link to all the musical performances throughout the movie. But that scene where, in the beginning he orders a package from Amazon just so Ramona will deliver it to his house so he can ask her out on a date. But the scene where she arrives and hands him the package, and it's the camera is like on the floor behind the door, so you see Scott's back and Ramona's face as she's handing him the package, and she hands it to him, and he just like throws it behind him, and it goes in the trash can. Like it took them 33 tries to do that, and like none of that is like CGI or edited or anything. It's just literally 33 tries of him getting the package, throwing it behind him, and signing for it, and like hoping it would go in.
That's funny.
Really funny to watch all of those attempts. But
I liked how when she rollerbladed through the street, the snow melted.
yeah, dude, it's because she's so hot, bro. The snow just melts away.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be more to that than that, but there wasn't.
Nope.
Maybe that's just how he saw it.
Yeah, well, it goes back to that that little blurb about, let's see, it's merely the internal perspective of how Scott understands himself and the world. So yeah, like
Right.
you're saying, it could totally just be him, like, that's how he sees Ramona. Of course, she would melt the snow around her. But did you know? I don't know. You may have, you may not. But did you know that there was a Scott Pilgrim vs. the World video game?
No.
Well, there was back in 2010, which was the year that this movie released. So do you call it Ubisoft or Ubisoft? Just wondering.
I think I say
you pronounce
Ubisoft. I think I say Ubi.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do, but I'm still always afraid to say it.
Ubisoft.
Ubi, it sounds
Ubisoft.
like Boobysoft, and yeah, so I go with Ubi.
Yeah,
But anyways,
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft Montreal, developed the game, and it was just a side-scrolling like beat 'em up like fighting game, not like a Street Fighter game, but like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like our arcade game, But it was out on the 360 and the PlayStation 3. And of course, being the founder of the Church of Scott Pilgrim, any type of Scott Pilgrim media that comes out, I have to consume. So I bought it, and it actually was like a really dope game.
Is that on Steam?
No, it's not on Steam. Unfortunately, I looked also before we started recording tonight. But I did read that it's scheduled to be re-released in the fourth quarter of 2020 on PS4, Xbox One, Switch, Windows,
Wow.
Stadia.
Why?
So that would be like now. I would
Why
think.
though? Is
Because
there?
it's the 10-year anniversary of the movie.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Are they gonna re-release the movie in like high definition 4K?
Well, they were doing like select in theater play-ins, to celebrate. But then the Rona happened, so that didn't really last very long.
Yeah.
Um,
Buy that theater stock. It's super cheap.
Big rips, like that makes me so sad. But yeah, so like if you happen to catch that, on the PlayStation Store, because I know you still do have your PS4, right?
Yes, I haven't played it in some time, and I've let my PlayStation Plus lapse.
Yeah, I don't own a console anymore, which is sad, but also freeing. But yeah, keep your eye out though. If you see that pop up on the PlayStation Store, I would recommend picking it up because it's super fun, like really fun. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad that you enjoyed the movie though, because I was gonna feel really dumb if I hyped it up so much to you, and then you watch it and you're like, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life."
Well, the way the movie starts off, that was at first where it was trending. I'm like, like, what does he like? Like a lot of like, it's not bad, but it's not that good to be the favorite. But then once obviously the first battle of the bands started and that all kicked out, I'm like, okay, it transcended to a new level here. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's Michael Cera just being Michael Cera. Such an interesting person.
They're like a lot of the side characters I think were like just as funny and strong as Scott and Ramona and like the main characters. I would even consider Wallace like a sub main character, if that even makes sense. Like, I don't think he was main character level, but he wasn't like side character level because he kind of had an important role to play.
He was Morgan Freeman in The Dark Knight. Like, he's kind of that level. Like, he's not completely a side character. He's the narrator. He's kind of like he plays an important role in Scott's telling in his head, because he kind of consults in Wallace.
Yeah.
I just like how progressively toward the end of the movie he's like, man, you gotta move out. I need my bed. I need my bed tonight,
like,
this week, this month,
this year,
all year.
He's like, yeah, I just need my bed for like sex and stuff. And I love how like throughout the movie there's just always like one more dude in the bed, like in all the bed scenes.
Yeah, and he's always kind of he's always drinking something, which I'm pretty sure he's just like actually drinking alcohol, even on like the set with Chris Evans, and he's just so nonchalant about things, and he has his own agenda the whole time. But meanwhile, he's still paying attention to Scott and like that kind of stuff, enough to be where he's like, I think the first one he's like evil, or no, what, like the second one he's like evil X, and like just does like the little like point
fight or whatever.
Yeah, because like Scott didn't quite get it, and he's like evil X drinking is like whatever it is.
He's like, you're famous and you punched me. But back to what I was gonna say. Wallace is an amazing character, and like everything that he says in this movie is hilarious. And like you're saying, his delivery and like his mannerisms and just like everything about Wallace is hysterical. And then you have young Neil, which we kind of touched on, where like he's like even dumber than Scott, which is hard to believe. But like again, like all of his mannerisms and all of the handful of lines that he had, like his deliveries were so funny. Like
yeah, well, even the first one where she's like, what do you play? He's like, Game Boy.
That's kind of a big question.
That's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah. Yeah, everything about young Neil is hysterical. Like even I love that he got knighted at the end.
Yeah,
basically. That's exactly what I was just gonna say. Where at the end in the Chaos Theater, Scott's like, "Ah, you've grown so much, young Neil. From this point on, you'll be known as Neil.
He was genuinely happy
Yeah.
because he became the bassist in the band. He's no longer young Neil.
Yeah.
He's 20 and he's young Neil.
But the other character that kind of like stole the show for me is Steven Stills, the vocalist for the Sexpo Bombs. All of his like just his like how much he loves the band and like how much like how far he's willing to go for the band and like how again insecure he is about the band like at the first battle when the Clash of the or not the Clash of the Demon, Crash and the boys are playing their second song, the one that's not like 5 seconds long, and the whole time while it's playing like he's like literally freaking out, but the music's too loud so like nobody can hear him, but you just see like all the text of everything he's saying like flying across the screen, and he's just like freaking out the back of Scott's head, and it, like how he has the art easel of like all the bands that they go up against and like the band members and like facts about them, and they're in the green room and they're going through the Crash and the Boys band, and he's like, "Oh no, oh my god, oh, this is a nightmare! Wake up, wake up!" Wake up.
Yeah,
like,
always panicking.
Yeah, man, but they overall, it's a very well-rounded movie. It's super funny. The visuals, even though the movie's 10 years old, they still hold up to today's standards. And
they should always hold up the way they did it. It'll always just kind of hold up.
Yeah, and like while it's not the most creative story per se, the way that it is executed and presented is very innovative and creative, if that makes sense. Because I mean, it's your typical almost rom-com storyline. Guy likes
right.
girl.
It's
an
it's the
obstacle
execution.
keeping guy from Girl, and then at the end they get together. But yeah, just the way that they present it to you and execute it is.
Yeah, but it's also got that very video game. It's a video game comic book spin on it because of almost making fun of kind of like a rom-com, because the obstacle is literally her 7 deadly ex-boyfriends that he has to physically fight and defeat. It was like a very literal translation. It's not subtle at all about it.
Yeah. I love it. It's kind of like a almost satirical take on the genre,
Right.
And being a fan of video games and music and comics, like seeing the tiny Easter eggs, like in the very beginning of the film, most of the sound effects and music in the background is Zelda music, right? You have whenever the black character descriptions pop up, you have like the Mac error sound when you hit the keyboard, the donk sound kind of thing, and just like we talked about earlier, where you have the text of sound effects, that kind of literally make it look like a comic panel on the screen. Yeah, it's a very unique movie. But yeah, so would you recommend this to your friends?
Yeah, I would recommend. I feel like a lot more people have seen it than particularly jump out and say, "Hey, I've seen it and I love that movie."
Yeah.
I feel like it's something that probably a lot of people saw in the 2010-ish era, especially if they were just already seeing Michael Cera movies. And maybe it's just been like a little bit forgotten. And I would definitely recommend it. I'd probably watch it again, give it enough time, just because of the certain characters are just. I just enjoy seeing certain people on screen and characters play out.
Well, hey, next time you watch it, I want to watch it with you because I love watching this movie with people. It's so fun. But to go kind of just touch on your last point there. So I, made the social media post last night when I was watching this and shared it on my like personal Facebook page. And like I actually got a handful of comments of people knowing the movie and like saying that they liked the movie that I never would have expected have seen it and or liked it, aside from a few people that I like personally watched it with. But I was like, yeah, man, so like, yeah, it's kind of a shame that it was such a flop at the box office, but like at least afterwards, through the Blu-ray sales and streaming and stuff like that, like it did find its way into people's lives, and those that have consumed it generally appreciate it and enjoy it. So I'm glad it's kind of reached that kind of cult classic status.
Those things take time sometimes.
Yep. But yeah, that pretty much, I guess, wraps up our Scott Pilgrim versus the World, dive, breakdown, recap, whatever you want to call this episode.
A table read.
Table read. That would be so funny, especially since, neither of us are actors, so it'd be terrible. Yeah, hey, if you guys want to make that happen, just say the word. I could probably recite it all by memory right now if you'd like, but no, we won't go. I won't make you suffer.
During the table read, you're just like, no, you have to say it like this.
Yeah. But hey, so yeah, I hope you guys watch it. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I have. I doubt that level of fandom can be reached by many, but hopefully this movie finds its way into your living rooms and then into your hearts, and you're able to find a deep love for it, such as I.
Streaming now on Netflix.
Yeah, watch it if you haven't. It's great. It's funny. You'll enjoy it. I think that does it. One last thing here before we go. As always, if you don't already, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at Showboys Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. It helps us out. Like, rate, review the episodes on whatever platform you're happening to be listening to this on. Feel free to reach out, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you guys. We like to interact with you. There's this tiny show called The Mandalorian. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we do a companion series that releases the Tuesday following the latest release of season 2 of The Mandalorian. So make sure that you check that out every week. We're 2 weeks in, and how many episodes are left? 6?
6, yeah. Maybe at the time of this, there's like 5.
Oh yeah, time jumps.
Time hops.
Yeah, we can never figure out.
Man, that episode 3 was so good.
Yes.
Calling it now.
Make sure you check that out. It's been really fun. It's a great show. Apparently, a lot of people watch the show, so it only makes sense to listen to us recap and break it down. But yeah, does it for me. How about you?
That's a wrap.
All right. Cue the music.
Cue the music. Anyway, you know what we should do next? We should start a new series under Showboys. You ready for
What?
this?
Yeah.
What's reading? Because we're gonna review books. How exciting is that?
Dude, I don't know how to read.
All right.
Yeah, hey, so if we have any listeners out there that actually know how to read that would like to do a spin-off of Book Boys with Nick,
Book Boys. There
Let
it
us know.
is. Book Boys.